Alrighty, good morning everyone. It is Wednesday, June 16th, 2021, and we're going to start our pre-market analysis for the S&P 500 futures market. So let's jump to our ultra-high time frames just to take a peek and see if anything has changed. And it looks like our quarterly and our monthly still both look very strong. No indications of exhaustion in the current bull push. When we get to our weekly, remember yesterday we talked about this. We got a bearish indication off the candle that closed for last week. And now on the current candle for this week, we're still seeing some indications of exhaustion in the push up. And so we'll have to watch. Remember, this candle has about three days left of price action to form and close, so the signal could change and the picture could change. So we don't want to say too much about the current candle, but so far we do see a little bit of exhaustion here from a weekly perspective. When we jump up to our daily, the daily is not necessarily showing a very strong exhaustion pattern here, but you can make an argument from the swing high on RVI back let's say back on June 1st, or I'm sorry, back on May 28th, you could somehow make an argument here that we pushed to higher highs in price, but the indicator itself has pushed a little bit lower here as of the candle that closed yesterday. Now, I'm not a huge fan of doing that, only because in a way I like to think about this. When you have a setup where you have a peak here, push to a lower peak, and a push to a higher high, I like to think of that as being my indication, and then it resets, and then from there we start with a new set here of highs or lows, and then if we get a similar pattern, then it would reset again. Otherwise, you're going to be going all the way back here, and basically every single time we push to a higher high, you're going to have an argument for a bearish indication. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. And this morning, if we disregard this situation back here and we assume that we already got our divergence indication on June 1st and got the pullback from there, this is no longer something we want to use. We want to look in the local area for a clear reversal indication. And in the local area, we don't necessarily see that. So on our weekly, we do see a sign of exhaustion, but on our quarterly, our monthly, and our daily, we don't necessarily see signs of that right now off of 58 quarter. That doesn't mean that we're not going to have some type of huge sell-off, if anything is possible in the market, but right now the daily is not necessarily agreeing with that weekly indication. On the 4-hour here, we did have the bearish indication off the high from yesterday. Remember, that's what helped us have our bearish bias going into the open. And right now, just kind of looking at where things are, we did get a pretty nice bullish indication here in the overnight at one point. So at one point in the overnight, we did get somewhat of a bullish indication here. We even then pushed down a little bit lower, and it seemed to have carried through where we pushed a little bit higher here on price. And so in both situations, we do have a pretty clear argument for bullish divergence there. As far as on the other side, any type of bearish signals here, just kind of looking here, you could probably make the argument here that price pushed a little bit higher and the indicator pushed lower here. So we do have that counter indication off the top end of the previous 4-hour candle. So not necessarily the cleanest agreement here on the 4-hour. But let's jump to our shorter time frame, see if we get a clearer picture in this area. And remember that we are in a huge chop zone right now. We did have FOMC begin yesterday, and we have the announcement today. So we could see a very kind of low volume, choppy situation, which is what we saw for a lot of yesterday and in through the overnight session. which you'll see here as we zoom in this area. Just a lot of consolidation, and so we can expect to have kind of these counter indications on the highs and lows in such a tight area. So let's go over to the 60-minute, and again, in this tight zone here, we're probably going to have a lot of counter indications, which is going to make it hard for us to have a clear picture over here. And basically what we're really going to want to do here is break outside of this little chop zone before we have a clear indication of where they might want to take the market. We also want to consider the possibility that they could pop out and give an indication of maybe some type of bullish push here, only to fake everyone out and then dump it. But we will get indications on a number of our time frames if that is the case. So if we get a huge push out of this area, but up on the highs we start getting a confluence of bearish signals, we could expect there to be some type of sell-off from that point. So right now on the 60-minute, we will go ahead and just see what it's saying over in this area. And I did not go through earlier and prepare anything, so I'm basically just looking at what I see in front of me here. I see a little bit of a bullish indication off that low there, and then a little bit of a bullish indication off of what looks to be the overnight low as well, which I think is what we saw on the 4-hour a little bit earlier there. Let me take a look here. Yeah, so same thing. So the 4-hour and the 1-hour giving us those bullish indications, and then that bearish indication off of this high over here. So the 4-hour and the 1-hour at least have some agreement here. And again, it's going to be a tight, choppy zone, so we don't necessarily want to be following these indications. We really would like to see a break out of this zone from about, let's call it 43.25, which was 50% of the previous daily price action, down to the previous daily low here. And so we really want to get outside of this area before we have some real conviction. Now remember, yesterday every single time frame, all the way from some of the higher time frames down to like the 3-minute, the 1-minute, and the tick, we had bearish indications up here from 58.25. So every single time frame gave us a bearish indication. We did pull back whatever it was, maybe 30 points, and now we are consolidating. So I'm not sure if we're going to get a continuation of a move from there, but we definitely got a 30-point reaction. So let's jump to our intermediate time frames here. I did draw in this kind of triangle type situation earlier, just before I started the broadcast. I had another one going last night, which was basically kind of like this. Basically the same slope down off of those 3 highs, but the slope up was there, and then we started kind of cutting through. So I reconsidered and drew off those lows. So we do have this little, kind of triangle situation going on here. On the 30-minute, let's just take a look here. We do have that same bearish indication off the top end of the trend line there, which is where we had the same bearish indication on the 60-minute and the 4-hour right over there. And then outside of that, don't necessarily see anything probably doesn't even matter if I see anything over in here anyway. We basically just have that bearish indication right there, and that's about it from a 30-minute perspective. Again, super choppy in here, so not necessarily an area that we need to really focus on for any of these smaller signals in here. So outside of that, I'm just kind of looking here. We did have just a very slight bullish indication right there, right at the bottom end of the trend line, interestingly enough, which was drawn from those lows. So a nice bullish indication off the lower end of the trend line, a nice bearish indication off the top end of it. And that's really all I'm seeing here on the 30-minute. And then the 10-minute, I really want to focus in on the most recent price action, because that's going to be the most important here. And We definitely had that same bullish indication on the 10-minute as well from that little pullback there. And we did have the bearish indication off that high. So basically a really nice agreement here on signals. However, the situation that we're in right now is basically we need to break above the highs up here from 43.25 and break above or break below at least that 31 and then get through 28 here to have any conviction on a direction this morning.